folks. So today we're going to be talking about validity. But before we dive in, I am going to warn you now that these are going to be pretty low energy recordings with minimal, if at all, editing, because I'm not feeling so hot today. And unfortunately, because of the time it takes to actually edit, I need to record them today. And so, yep. Yay! Oh, also, fun facts. My chair. Broken. I've got it, which side? Okay. Oh, right here. Yeah, so I've got it gorilla glued back, but it's very likely that I will lean back in this chair and just be surprised when there's no back. So, that's fun. Oh, and before I go any further, I'd like to thank the students who actually do watch these videos to the end, because it was really nice to know that you guys actually do that, and frankly, that's the only reason I'm recording this week instead of just emailing out the lecture notes, which I've uploaded for the most part. So, yep. Okay. But at least vaccine 1 is done, so that's something. Okay, let's dive in. So, psychological tests exist to help us draw inferences about people and behavior. That's their entire goal. But in order for those inferences to be valid, we need for those inferences to be true, we need to establish validity. Because reliability is nice and all, but we need validity in order to be able to make true predictions that aren't just consistent. Okay, so our roadmap for this module is going to start with definitions of validity, ranging from Anastasi, who has been the predominant thinking up until the late 80s, in which post 1980s, some really nice kind of two approaches came to be, including kind of a causal inference perspective from Cook and Campbell, which is closer to my background, as well as an education measurement perspective, which really helps to frame validity in a way that isn't just a hot mess. And so we'll be talking about those two frameworks, and I'll be diving deeply into both of them, but focusing predominantly on the education measurement perspective, because that is what is typically used in test development. So, yeah, cool. So, the earliest definitions of validity were the extent to which a test measures what it purports to measure. This was formulated in 1921 by the National Association of the Directors of Educational Research. It was ratified by tons of testing experts, including Anastasi herself, and I think it's floating around page 8 in our edition, Anastasi and Urbina, which is the view that test validity concerns what the test measures and how well it does that. And the classic school of thought is that agreement between a test score or a measure in the quality indicates high validity, and disagreement, so lack of similarity, indicates lower validity. And this has kind of resulted in this proliferation of definitions, which has brought up this big question of, what are validities? We're going to talk about construct validity, content validity, face validity, criterion validity, predictive validity, concurrent validity, construct validity. There's so many. And here are the fundamental issues with the classic definition that revolves around unstated but really clear assumptions. That validity is a property of tests rather than test score interpretations. And that in order for something to be valid, test scores need to measure some purported construct directly. And third, that score validity is, at least to some extent, a function of the test authors or developers' understanding of whatever construct they are intending to measure. So these are all big assumptions. Now, before we go on, I just want to talk a little about one type of validity that isn't face validity. So, because in previous iterations of this class, people thought that face validity was an actual, like a true valid validity. It's not. It's very popular, but it is not actually a real kind of validity. It's the appearance that a test has validity. For example, does the test look like it measures what it's supposed to measure? And do the items seem to be related to the perceived purpose of the test? For example, does a depression inventory ask questions about being sad? So it's not a real measure, but it's one that is commonly seen in the literature. So this is not considered a legitimate form when we talk about the Joint Committee. So this is the education measurement perspective. And it's not viewed as legitimate also under the Shadish, Cook, and Campbell perspective as well. So if you write that this is real validity, you're going to have a rough time in this class. Just because it looks like it's valid doesn't mean it's actually valid. Okay, so back to ways to kind of organize this. So we're going to talk about the Shadish, Cook, and Campbell approach, which is a causal inference perspective. And this is about eliminating threats to validity and breaking them down into internal and external validity, versus the education measurement perspective, which is developed based on the standards for educational and psychological testing. This joint council was initiated in the 80s, and they've updated several times. And I believe I have the most current version, unless they changed something in the last hour. It frames itself as talking about different kinds of evidence versus eliminating threats. These are different frameworks that are both quite useful, and we can synthesize them later. But these are the two frameworks we're going to work with.